Do it in such a way. We had a glimpse of it during the sea era when there was lockdown everywhere. And if you had to go anywhere, you must have to show proof. And for those who had not done the mandatory vaccines could not proceed. And they were all looked as evil people and wicked people. So you become invariably an enemy of society. So they will say you are either harmful, they will castigate you as harmful to society or an enemy of society. Let me give you an example of what will happen. Media campaigns might emphasize that refusing the mark endangers public health, destabilizes the economy, or contributes to societal chaos. The mark could be positioned as a means to ensure peace and safety. Remember 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 3. They might be in times of global crisis. We must all do our part to protect the greater good, they will say. But underlining, we know what is happening. Number 4, what they might do. Remember, we are looking at the hypothetical scenario. Desensitization and cultural conditioning. Now, Pastor, what do you mean by this? Over time, the global leaders' government might already have desensitized society through gradual changes leading to the mark. The mark will be the final step in a series of seemingly minor technological or social shifts that people have already become to get accustomed to. They already become accustomed to them. Example, prior to adoption of biometric system such as facial recognition, fingerprint scanning, implantable chips, could make the mark seem like a natural step. They will do it. They will make everyone feel that it's a natural thing, and they will do it step by step. By the time it is introduced, the public, they are already used to the system. They are already familiar with the system, and thus likely to question the implementation. So a lot of people will not raise an eyelid. They will not raise their eyebrow. They will not question the system because they have introduced it gradually, and to them it has become known, just as we are experiencing now. So taking of vaccines, getting your digital ID, and so the transition to getting a global digital ID will not be a problem. Remember, it is going to be global. If you look at if you have watched my previous video, if you have not, please go and watch it. The global digital ID. That is all this thing we are talking about. So those who have done it will not question the implementation and the way they are going about it now. Remember, I said in my previous video that they started with all the smaller nations. Right now, they are in the bigger nations, and America is one of them. Recently, they just shifted the dates to 2025 again for some states in America. Some other states, they have already done it. Number 5. Rebranding the mark. The mark would likely not be introduced under the name. Of course, that's the heading for this topic. They will not introduce the mark under the name as the mark of the beast, as described in Revelation 13. Instead, it could be rebranded as something completely benign. You know what benign is? Even beneficial. For example, rather than calling it the mark, it could be labeled as a universal ID. I've told you before, it is going to be a global digital ID. Healthcare certificate, or they will call it digital wallet. That thing in your bank account, that second account. Yes. This will remove the immediate religious connotation. So they will not bring the face of a religious thing. But remember, it's allegiance to worship. It's an allegiance to devotion. Is an allegiance to the man who the government represents. So, this will remove the immediate religious connotation and make it appear less threatening. Physical manifestation of the mark on the hand or on the forehead might be disguised as a wearable device, digital tattoo, even an implanted microchip, marketed for convenience. But I'm going to tell you, they are going to even go a step further. It's going to be a wearable tattoo, a tattoo on your forehand or your forehead, a designer tattoo. And none of these tattoos will be the same. Every single tattoo that is going to be created will be different from the other. And these tattoos will be linked easily to your QR code. Very soon, the world will be full of QR code. I'm not even talking about the developed world that they already have it already. No, I'm talking about the developing world and the underdeveloped world. Everything you are going to do, transaction you are going to be doing now henceforth will be by through QR code. So by introducing the QR code, you're already used to it, not knowing that by the time you are doing your designer finance wallet, by the time you are doing your designer ID, by the time you are doing your new monetary ID to be a wearable tattoo that can be scanned anywhere and is going to be unique, assigned to you. Okay? So, I said, the physical manifestation of the mark, either on the hand or on the forehead, might be disguised as a wearable device, digital tattoo, even an implanted microchip. But all I'm saying today is that it's going to be a tattoo. They already know that the church is already expecting that once they announce that let everybody go and take an implant or an ROIFID chip, all our antennas will be raised. They won't come through that route. That's why this video is coming. They know we're already aware. They know because of the backlashes that has taken place, a whole lot of things that are taking place. They are not going to make that mistake. Satan is not dumb. Satan will strategically implement his game plan without the world, half of the world knowing. Number 6, they will leverage trust on trusted authority. Pastor, what do you mean? Leveraging trust on authorities. The global leaders' government would likely use trusted figures such as celebrities, religious leaders, or scientists, known faces. They will use musicians, the world acclaimed musicians, they will use them. They will bring all the sports icons from the footballing world to the musical world to the social media world. They will use all these great personalities just as they advertise their products to sell this. This figure could be co-opted to normalize the adoption of the mark and convince people that it is safe and beneficial. Example, a highly respected religious figure might claim that the mark is not biblical. It's not the biblical mark of the beast. They might use someone from any of this big church. I didn't call anybody's name. But a mere necessary for modern life. This would lead many to accept it without suspicion because it's coming from such a highly venerated person who speaks on behalf of the body of the Christian community. Excuse me. Number 7, demonizing resistors. Of course, if you are a Christian, you know that this is talking about us. Those who refuse the mark will be portrayed as enemies of society, dangerous individuals who are holding back progress, causing harm to others, threatening the peace and the safety, just like what they did to those who were not C-19 vaccines compliant. Example, the government might launch a propaganda campaign portraying resistors as terrorists, anarchists, conspiracy theorists, disease spreaders who refuse to contribute to the common good. This would make society unacceptable to resist, further isolating those who are through this deception, further isolating those who see through this what? Deception. Social pressure would be immense as people may lose jobs, access to services, or even face legal consequences for no compliance. Of course, they are the government in power, and so they will promulgate laws. They will enact laws that will be against those who refuse to take mark and call them enemies of state and call them enemies of progress, call them resistance or protesters, whatever they are going to call them. And of course, you know, when as a citizen you can't fight against the government and win. Number 8, restricting freedom to buy and sell. Of course, this is the highlight of where it will come to. The most coercive element will be to be the restriction of commerce. I take that again. The most coercive element will be the restriction of commerce. In other words, you can't buy and sell. Those who do not receive the mark will not be allowed to participate in economy. You can't use money. No buying or selling. Effective cutting them off from basic survival needs. Imagine that. Example, digital currencies tied to the mark will become the only legal tender. Of course, that's what the Bible has told us. Replacing traditional cash. Without the mark, people will be unable to make transactions, forcing many into compliance out of sheer desperation, especially nursing mothers, especially women who will not be able to bear to see their children starve to death. They will, out of sheer agony and sympathy, compassion for their children, be willing to accept the mark. May we be strong when the time comes in Jesus' name. Number 9, targeting religious community. Of course, we all know that religious groups, especially Christians, who are aware of this prophecy will not likely be some of the first to they will be likely the first to resist the taking of the mark. To undermine their resistance, the global leaders government could either persecute them directly or attempt to divide them internally by infiltrating religious organizations. For example, some religious leaders may be bribed, they're already doing it, blackmailed, or manipulated into endorsing the mark, leading to division among the believers. Others who openly resist might be labeled as extremists or criminals, just as I said earlier, with their voice silenced through censorship or imprisonment. Of course, whatever they have done in China, they are going to extend it to the whole part of the world. I can tell you that they are going to silence people. The Chinese, what their social credit system is doing for them and how people are suffering. Number 10, final spiritual deception. In a final move, the new world order or the global leader government might use spiritual deception to convince people that the mark is not what it seems. This could involve false signs or wonders designed to convince people that the mark is actually aligned with God's will. Example, a counterfeit religious movement might arise. We're already seeing it. Ecumenism is arising already. We see one of our great leaders moving to and fro upon the earth on his apostolic journeys, trying to breach the faith interreligion. So a counterfeit religious movement might arise, claiming to represent Christ, but leading people astray. This false movement might declare taking the mark is part of God's plans for unity or salvation, further confusing and deceiving the masses. In these hypothetical scenarios I have presented, 10 scenarios, while many would accept the mark due to pressure, fear, or deception, there would likely be a remnant of believers who refuse to comply, understanding its eternal consequences as outlined in Revelation 19, in Revelation 14 from verse 9, we just read when we started. These individuals might face severe persecution, but their faith and discernment will be sustained throughout the trial because God will not leave us alone. Excuse me. I'm sharing this to warn us. I'm sharing this to prepare us ahead of time that when the mark of the beast is going to be shed, the mark of the beast is not going to be labeled as the sign of the Antichrist. It's not going to be labeled that way. It's not going to be announced that way. Rather, it is going to be labeled as something fanciful, something beneficial, something cool, and something that must be a must-have to be a part of the new world that the new global leader is introducing. So, my beloved brothers and sisters, friends, don't be deceived. The mark of the beast will not be introduced as we have envisaged or as we think it will be. It will be something totally different. Just as your national ID was introduced and everybody ran into it, so will it be introduced when the time comes. The globalists are already at work, full time. All you just need is that first point I made. Go back to the first point, you will understand. It's just a national crisis. everything is set. And by the time those things are put in place, those national crises are enacted, then you will see how this will play out. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. This is your guy, Pastor Ike Abbey, reporting from God's End Time Mission Television. Please subscribe to my channel, like, comment. If this message makes sense to you, please like, comment, subscribe, so that the algorithm can recommend this video to other people, so that they also can become aware and alert and prepare themselves for what is to come. Now, somebody will ask me, Pastor, what do we need to do since all these things is going to happen in our generation? Like I always say, live your life as if Jesus is coming today, forgetting about whether the Antichrist is coming or not. Live your life as if Jesus is coming today, and plan your life as if he is not coming in another 100 years. All you need to do, be prepared. The Bible says, watch and pray. And as you watch and pray, I pray that the Lord will strengthen you, give you grace to survive. We shall see on that day in the clouds. God bless you. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like. Cheers.